Heart rate, heartburns, pains, anxiety, stress. Yes, we are going to speak about the heart rate training zones. Very important. Hello, friends. This is Parag Mhetre, your host on Stay Strong podcast. It's my promise to bring you the best information in the world of kettlebells and strength and conditioning. This is my first solo podcast and of this year, and I'm recording this for the heart rate training zones. So often in my certification programs or kettlebell workshops, or even in functional training workshops, we get a very common question of what to keep the heart rate and how to monitor the heart rate while doing training. And it is very important for me as a coach to explain you these details on a very detailed level. And the reason behind that is because kettlebells or the training what we do primarily is high rep training. Uh, when you're doing a high rep training, then definitely you would need to monitor your heart rate. And even before starting to take control of your workout with kettlebells or even with body weight or even while doing high intensity training program, which is HIIT training program, you need to first really understand how is your heart performing. Have you ever done the test? Say as simple as that, taking the resting heart rate. At times we see that we really do not really know. Coaches also most of the time don't know that before starting the workout, you need to first monitor the resting heart rate. As you can see a human body, and as you can see that we can't say what is your fitness levels when you actually see the body or when you see a person. How is your heart functioning and what all things are going inside, you really do not know. I have seen even my clients appear to look very physically fit even after a long break, but they still lack fitness. And by taking as simple as 30 seconds plank or even doing a brisk walk or even doing a tug test, you would understand that how good they are when it comes to the heart training. And when you're training yourself after a long break, or that is the first thing. Second, even if you're training consistently with your coach, or if you're training consistently and if you want to really take a jump on to do a little intense training, you need to test yourself. Testing yourself is important, mandatory, and the reason behind that is you will be able to understand that would you be able to perform at such a high level if your heart rate is close to 80-90% of your maximum heart rate. Now, when it comes to training with the heart, you need to know a couple of things. First, the most important part here is the resting heart rate. So how do we calculate the resting heart rate? Resting heart rate is done early in the morning. So as soon as you get up, you have to take the beats either on the wrist, or you can keep the three fingers just below the jawline here and take the beats for 15 seconds and multiply by 4. Now you might get little high beats. At times you might see even low beats. So my suggestion would be to take heart rate at least 3 times. So for example, if you're taking it tomorrow, maybe you might want to take it day after as well, and then average it so that you actually understand that what exactly is your resting heart rate. You might get 60, you might get 50, you might get 70, whatever it is, just write it down, because that is your first benchmark. First benchmark in the sense is first, before you start any kind of training program, if you really want to see the growth, whether you have gone from point A to point B, whether you are progressed or not, whether you are doing a self-coaching or whether you are coaching with your coach, whether you're training with your coach, you would actually understand that whether your heart rate is dropping or whether your heart rate is increasing. Now, there are a couple of things related to this is because if you're training for an hour or 45 minutes or even 2 hours at times, you need to understand that when you are actually doing training, your body is actually into a catabolic state, and body gets converted, or you become anabolic when you're actually resting, that is when you're actually sleeping, when you're taking nutrition. So your that 1 hour is breaking down zone of the training, and when that 1 hour is breaking down of the zone, you need to understand that your that intensity of the training has to be divided into a few parts. Now I'm going to share an Excel sheet here. Now this basically would explain different types of zone. Now, when it comes to heart rate training zone, there are typical 4 zones. As you can see here, the first zone is zone 1, which is mentioned as 50 to 60% of MHR. I'll come to the point of MHR a little later. What is maximum heart rate and how it is calculated. Now, when you say 50% of 60% of MHR, it is primarily a walking exercise and monitoring your heart rate after completing 15, 20, 30 minutes of walking. So, for example, if your beats are 110 or 120 beats per minute, and if your MHR is 180, 190, then you are close to 60% of your MHR, which is zone 1. So, ideally, if you're taking a long haul, that is a long break in your training, you should start with zone 1. And if you've been doing an athletic training in your life, you are bound to go to zone 3 or zone 4 real little quick. But if you're not, if you're doing your training, that is you're doing your any kind of cardio workout for the first time, then you might take little time, maybe a year also. It depends entirely upon your training, your coaching, your recovery, and how really do you look forward to these kind of workouts, doing it on a consistently basis. Zone 2 is 60 to 70% of MHR. So here you might want to have a little, like mostly these exercises are walking plus doing a little intense body weight training. And the pause between the exercise would be close to 90 seconds. Well, the pause depends upon, again, your coaching and your recovery of the heart rate between the workout. But typically 90 seconds would be a break where you take, that is between, say for example, if you're doing bodyweight squat and a push-up. So you typically take around 90 seconds of break, monitor the heart rate, take the heart rate again and start your second activity. So if you're example, if you're doing 10 different exercises and you are on to close to 6th or 7th exercise, you need to frequently monitor your heart rate because your heart rate should be between that zone of 60 to 70% of MHR. 70 to 80% of MHR are primarily doing training, weights, or intense running. Now, primarily when it comes to cardio exercise, these heart rates are monitored with the running, but if you are a strength athlete or if you are doing strength training, then still your monitoring of heart rate is very important. So when you are doing high intensity training programs, you need to understand as a member fitness enthusiast, or if you are taking coaching, you need to understand that if your heart rate is between 70 to 80% of the maximum heart rate, you are training into a zone 3. Zone 4 is typically an athlete's training, so it's a very high intense training. And when it comes to 80 to 90% of MHR, that means, say for example, if your total training time is around 20 minutes, so your entire 15 to 20 minutes of your training is lying between 75-80% to 90% of maximum heart rate. So this is very intense training, and these are mostly the well-trained athletes. At times, people having athlete's heart. I'm going to cover this podcast into 2 parts. So the first part is basically just covering to understand what are the different training zones. Second part would be primarily the nutrition part a little bit, and what is athlete's heart, and basically it will be a little advanced to the part 1 training program. So as a member or even general person, if you are actually training your heart, you need to understand there are 4 different types of zone, and you need to decide your zone when you're starting your any kind of cardio workout. What is MHR? That's the next question and very important. MHR is maximum heart rate, and how is that removed? So for men, the MHR is 220 minus age, and for women, the MHR is 226 minus age. So the number, from where this number comes, most of the time, again, this question is very common. when it has been asked by many coaches, many athletes in my courses, is the 220 or the 226 is the heartbeat of a newborn baby boy and heartbeat of a newborn baby girl. Women's heart are stronger than men's heart. As you all know, in generally the heart attacks are often to men as compared to women. So, if you are a woman, then I'm sure when you're doing any kind of cardio training or high intense training, the recovery can be faster if you have been training for a really long time. Similarly, for the men, you can see they might take a little longer break if you are training for any kind of an high intense training program. So, um, you need to understand these four training zones. You need to understand what is MHR and how to calculate from this informative sheets. Now going ahead, there are certain things which you need to understand. These are called the parameters. Like for example, I'm going to close this. If you're training and if you're getting training, getting started the training, you need to understand that writing down a couple of things is very important. First is the resting heart rate. Second would be heart rate post workout. So after you finish your heart rate, um, after you finish your workout, what is your heart rate? So if you have had a very intense training program, if you're cooling down, when you're cooling down, what is your heart rate and how and with what rate are you cooling down? Are you stopping the exercise suddenly, or are you taking frequent breaks and then stopping? Because if you're doing any kind of intense cardio, then ideally there would be a recommendation to do a cool down. So if you're running on a treadmill, say for 30 minutes, so next 10 minutes has to be a cool down so your heart rate doesn't stop all of a sudden. So you have to cool down by having a different zones. That is basically you're running faster, then you're running a little slower, and then you're walking. So that is how you basically slow down your heart rate. And that is also applicable for now people who are lifting kettlebells and people who are doing kind of strength training. So for example, if you're doing high intense training with double kettlebells, so ideal recommendation would be to maybe do a little cool down with a little lower weights and do a little holds, do a little body weight stretches, which basically will allow your heart rate to cool down. So that is very important. Third part would be recovery and the training intensity. Be the recovery and the training intensity. So the training intensity has to be no more than 3 times a week when it comes to a high intensity training program. So if you're training almost every day, then you might feel little challenges to recover. That is the other day recovery. Well-trained athletes are doing training pretty every day, but my recommendation would be for general people here that your training intensity for typically for kettlebells or even for strength training, that is with the barbells, or even if you are into running, would be 3 to maximum 4 times a week, and your duration of the time of the training can be between 1 hour to 1 hour 15 minutes, which would basically include everything. So is in this entire span of 1 hour, 1 hour 15 minutes, you need to understand that how much are you training your heart, how much are you doing your other exercises, which is flexibility training, and how much time have you given to the warm-up part, because many times we skip, many times we really have a very short time, 3 or 4 minutes of warm-up, and the chances of getting injured becomes very high if you're spending very less time on the warm-up. So you need to spend equal amount of time for the warm-up, and that is why the total time of the workout has to be 1 hour 15 minutes, which is an ideal good time, 3 times a week, which is close to 3.5 to at extended 4 hours a week kind of a training. So these are the important things or the factors which you need to understand. And last but not the least is if you are a coach, this is very important. You need to speak to your clients on a couple of things because of also the current conditions given, pandemic ongoing, and a lot of other things are there, and we really do not know what's going inside the mind. So you need to check the stress pattern of the client. Are they really stressed out? If they are stressed out, then you need to stop that day. You do not really have to work out that day, because that can hamper the workout and psychologically also depress the client or the member and feel negatives about the workout. So having a pep talk before starting the workout about what kind of nutrition they have had, what kind of work they have been doing since morning, or what kind of stress pattern they had. And when it comes to stress pattern, also the important part is the sleep. How much sleep have they taken? Have they taken sufficient sleep so that their workout would be better? And if they have slept less, then probably you as a coach need to understand that you need to do not work hard on that day. You need to lift little lighter weight for a little longer time, given an option rather than lifting heavy weight for a little shorter time. So stress pattern is very important. Uh, there are other factors when it comes to checking the or the factors which would be responsible to cardio health, like obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, that is hypertension. These factors are by default. I mean, I am not discussing all those things, but I'm discussing which is very important these days, which I've just mentioned, like a stress pattern. Um, Anxiety is another, which is of course related to the stresses. um, I think many people are very anxious about a lot of things these days which is happening in and around them, but there is a lot of expectations been happening from the colleagues and from the students or from the members. So you need to check the anxiety, and it is, I know at times would be very difficult for a coach, but if you have that mindset to speak, talk, understand, because when you are into the field of personal training, that is what the personal training means, is you need to understand that what are the personal challenges the members have, and how long can you go and help them. 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%, 50% is depending upon entirely how much do they open up to you. Keeping a professional relationship, you need to understand that as a personal coach, as a personal trainer, how best you can go and extend your hand to help them and recover them and get their fitness to a better levels. So that was a little informative information or the talk given on heart rate zones, and I'll see you the next time on a different chapter. Wish you a very good day and a very happy and a very healthy heart. Stay strong.